pocket. Or landing a couple of big rights.
Strachan lost control at the end of that.
And this is Strachan's first bout. And he has, I believe, been cut on the nose.
Down on the ice they go. As McCormick teed off on Tyson Strachan.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Hockey Family Podcast. And I'm Tyson Strachan. Those clips that you just heard were some of the maybe poorer decisions that I made throughout my career. Creating this podcast to try to help some other boys maybe make some better decisions than I did throughout my career. And as always, I'm joined by the founder of our firm, my old D partner from college. We got two Minnesota boys on the podcast today. CFP, Johan Kroll.
Thanks, Trax. Excited to have a fellow Minnesotan on the podcast today. Ryan Carter, awesome NHL career, nearly 500 regular season games, close to 50 playoff games, still involved with the game of hockey, doing some media with the Wild. I played against Ryan a fair amount growing up, youth hockey. And then we were just talking before we pressed record here, when Ryan was in, Green Bay in the USHL, I was in Sioux City. And then of course, Ryan went to Mankato to play college hockey when Strax and I were at Ohio State. I think we had a game there that actually, the Buckeyes came out on top, but, then of course, Strax and Ryan crossed paths in Florida. So we really appreciate you coming on the Hockey Family Podcast.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Excited to be here. Who was coaching you guys in Ohio State that year?
Johnny Markell.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever have Osiki?
No, he was way after us.
Yeah.
Way after. I just wanted to try to date you guys. That's all I was trying to do. 1-0 for the guys in Mankato.
Yeah, you remember that game that we mentioned, right? So we spanked you guys. Obviously, the one game we played you. That's all that matters.
It was a holiday tournament. Nothing says like Merry Christmas like going to Columbus for a game to play Ohio State. I do remember though that I was able. It was the first time I had been to like a Mongolian grill because there was one right across the street from the arena. So I think the whole team went there. It was kind of a disaster, I suppose, probably for the restaurant, having 25 college dudes come in and order a bunch of food at once. But no, it was a good time. But yeah, you guys probably had the upper hand. We'll have to check the score sheet. I think I got on there though.
I'm sure you were on there.
I did too, actually.
Mongolian barbecue might have played a factor in the game too. If you had that the night before, that's always a tough one to handle on the old stomach.
Right. Maybe there's a little salt in it too, so maybe maybe a little bloated the next day, but that's okay.
Got the sodium level up. That's okay.
Right.
That's okay. You're probably playing 40 minutes. You needed the salt. That's good.
Yeah, forecheck, back check. You know the drill.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you mentioned you guys playing against each other. We crossed paths. Karts and I probably played more golf together than we did hockey because it was a very brief stint there. A lot of work around the practice green. Karts had a putter that we've doubly named the Medicus, and we think that's what it's called. But he was lights out with this big wedge of iron. I don't know what the hell it was.
Yeah. You remember that? Like, so we ended up in Florida together, and I was living in what felt like a retirement home, and I actually felt like it was going to be the end of my playing days too. It's like the team stunk. It was post deadline. They had traded anything that they could just to get assets for the future. No clue if you were going to be a part of their future because I came at the deadline. But it just felt like, this could be the end. But that's I didn't have my golf clubs, didn't have any of that fun stuff. But I felt like, well, I better take advantage of the surroundings. So I go to Play It Again Sport, and I pick up a practice putter, and it happens to be like an 8-pound lead weight, but it's like your normal Titleist Newport number 2. And
Yeah.
Tyson and I were sitting in the hotel. There was a putting green right out back. So we just go out there and roll it for a bit. And I'll be honest, the hockey stunk, but it was therapeutic to go out there and just listen to the ball roll into the bottom of the cup with the Medicus. So I still have that putter in the garage because that maybe saved me mentally in hockey. It really probably did.
You should. Yeah, I remember it being a little bit of a dark period for sure. And to age ourselves again, we weren't the go back to the hotel nap guys at that time. So get out late at night, take the shoes off. I think it was a lot of barefoot putting and a lot of wagers on the line, and the Medicus just kept coming through.
Draining. I've never put that well before, but again,
No.
sometimes you just got to grab hold of whatever's positive, and that putter was positive at that time.
Yes, it was. And then what? You're only 7 games or something, and then you're off to a resurgence of your career.
Well, I tell you what, like that, the power of positivity was on display there because that was the truth. I felt like I was going to Florida to die. That was it. This is the end. Who knows what the future holds? But you've got a chance to play 7, 8 games coming off an injury. I was traded hurt. Wasn't supposed to play, but felt like, okay, I better do something. Otherwise, like I said, career over. Played 7 or 8 games, played hard enough. And the coach, Pete DeBoer in Florida, ends up getting fired after the year, but he's coming around, giving everybody a handshake. He's like, Ron, I really, really like and respect what you did here. You played great, loved you. Good luck. He ends up getting a job in Jersey, and then boom, he's like, hey, they needed somebody that filled that role in Jersey. He's like, I like Ryan. And then all of a sudden, boom, that's what set me off second half of my career. So it was fortunate timing, but man, never give up. Never give up. You never know.
That's awesome. And that might tie in well, like this podcast is all about, sharing wisdom and lessons learned with the hockey family. And, the first question we always like to start with is, what's the best advice you ever received or a lesson you learned like in the game of hockey that you would share with younger guys?
Yeah, so it's actually probably so simple. And I wasn't one of those players that was auto A team. And I always say this, my family didn't understand the hockey landscape. My father still can't skate. It's not like my mother didn't play. Grandparents had no clue. Like it was a different scenario in my household. So they didn't have like hockey advice or like, don't worry about it. We'll go this route, whatever. It was just go in the backyard, play, go to tryouts, make the team you make, and good luck to you, And so I would get disappointed because I felt I was a good player. And if I made the B team, you're like, oh, man, tryouts were a big deal. And I had one coach and I'm a product of my environment, I always say. Like my neighborhood, there was a rink in the backyard. My neighborhood played Division I hockey. His boys played. So I just kind of grabbed a hold of that family and their situation and learned the game of hockey. And his son was a goaltender, my age. He ended up being the best man at my wedding. And I made the team that he was coaching. So it was like a consolation prize. But he could tell in my demeanor that I wasn't that happy. And he just comes up to me and he says, hey, you know what, Ryan? Just be the best player on every team that you're on and you'll make the next team. Like you have a chance to come here and play. And if you just don't worry about whatever team you're on, it truly doesn't matter. Just be the best player. And then as you try to make the next team, you'll make it because the best player from that team will make the next team and then the next one. So it really just helped me focus on myself and just being good in the moment, I think. So that was an advice that I took all the time. And I think it was on display in Florida. It's like, be good in the moment, just be the best you can be in that moment. And if you're good enough, you'll make that next one. But if you get all down and you're upset and you don't do your best or you don't play to your abilities, that you won't move on. So it was really simple advice, but the best advice I think I'd ever had. It's just be the best on your team, set that goal, and you'll be good.
Oh, that's excellent.
It's really, really good advice. And obviously, I've spent my career, in and out of the lineup, right? So I always told people that hockey was so much about timing, right? And there's luck involved, but being able to take advantage of those opportunities when they're presented to you, right? And feel like on the inverse of what you were saying, I felt myself talking to a lot of younger kids as I became the older guy in the locker room, of them struggling because they were always, once you get to pro, everybody was the best player on whatever team they just came from, right? So now you're in pro, and these kids are all kind of struggling to find who they are, because now maybe they're not the best on that team, but they still have that ego and everything, and you're kind of having to talk to them and say, okay, everybody here was the best on their team, so now find a way to be your best out there. Like, moping around is not going to help.
Right. No, I agree. And you're absolutely right. But I think the advice I try to share with kids now is not that same advice I got. But I try to say now, set massive goals. And so for me, that set me off on like the correct goal setting path, like be the best on this team, be the best on this team. Okay. And then you could make your minor goals after that. Like, okay, I've got to score. Okay, I'm going to have to shoot. All right. Let's be the best penalty killer. Let's be, a guy that can count on the power play. So you just set all those little goals, and that helped you be the best player on that team. But now I tell kids, I really do, because I never had this thought. I played with a guy, Marty Brodeur, in Jersey, and you could tell his mentality was, I want to be the best that's ever played. I had never had that thought once in my life, never once. And I truly believe, because I never had that thought, that would never come to fruition. It wasn't, no matter how hard I worked or how good I got, if I didn't have the thought that I wanted to be the best that ever played, I never would be. So now I tell kids, like, you have to set these massive goals for yourself, and you'll work to them. And even if you fail at these high, goals, high level goals, your floor will still be much higher than if you set like an achievable goal, like lower down the rung, so to speak. So that's how I try to motivate kids now too, is like, hey, yeah, just continue to like want more, be better. I think Strax and Crosley at some point, I think we settled with our role, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes that leads to success. Sometimes you have to, but sometimes you could push through that. And I'd be curious if you have doubts at times. Like, do you have doubts at, what if I push through that? What if I said, no, I don't want to go off the glass with this breakout? What if I said, I see that guy at the middle of the ice, I'm going to try to make that play? I have those thoughts sometimes. I settled as a fourth line guy. It's cool. I had success 10 years, but sometimes it's like, hey, kids, set the goals. Like, go down guns blazing, be as good as you can be.
Yeah, it's without question. That's one of my biggest regrets. Like, looking back was, the times in my career where I was, playing like afraid to make a mistake instead of, being creative. Like, it's okay. Just go, like, make the play. If it doesn't work this time, who cares? And of course, in my mind, especially being, defenseman, in and out of the lineup at times, like, you're scared, you turn the puck over and you're up in the stands the next night. But looking back, like, I wish I would have had a little bit more of that mentality for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and that's where it comes down to. That's why I try to tell the kids, your mentality all of a sudden changes from the plays you can't make to the plays that you can make. If you only focus on the ones you can make and you don't sweat the ones you can't make, right, or you didn't make, then, it sets you on the right trajectory. But I fall into those same traps too. It's like, you can't be thinking about what I can't do. You got to think about what you can do. So that's probably the advice that I try to give kids most now.
Oh,
that's
awesome.
That's really good advice. Yeah, I'm now, you got me head spinning, because I thought about that all the time. I mean, obviously, I had such a goal to make it to the NHL. You made it there, and then almost my goal changed to just stay. Right, like you said, settling into that role. It was, being a good room guy, not making mistakes when I was on the ice. Doing all those little things to make sure that I was not, getting sent down or getting taken out of the lineup. But going back to Florida, I still remember this one day after practice. I think we had one of those one-on-one drills or something, and I had, toe dragged somebody and scored. And Sean Mathias came over to me and he's like, Strax, like, why don't you do any of the stuff like in games that you do in practice? He's like, in practice, you're unbelievable. I was like, dude, because I can't make a mistake. Like, I'll get sent down. And that was it. And that's how I live my life. And you look back on it, it could have went either way, right? Like I could have went out there and tried to toe drag the next game and then maybe never played another game in the NHL, who knows? So
Right.
I don't want to be full of what ifs, but yeah, I was always jealous of the guys that had so much confidence that they were willing to, try those plays and make the mistakes, and not the stupid ones, right? Not the ones that are giving up breakaways going the other way, but in tight, they were willing to try to beat somebody or, like you said, make that extra pass. It was a nerve-wracking time for me, for sure. Yeah. But let's transition. Great. Let's transition.
Yeah. Yes. So Ryan, in our office, obviously we help guys with money management and planning, and for during careers and after their careers. So just any personal experience, good advice, anything to give younger guys in terms of financial advice that you received along the way?
Well, so I would say the probably the most critical piece of financial advice I got was and it was probably my upbringing, but my father was a police officer in St. Paul, and they had notoriously had great pension plans, and he had worked for St. Paul for 30 years, and I would be 15, 16 years old, and he'd be at his 25th year with St. Paul. He's like, I got to get to 30, because once I get to 30 years, it's, I get 92% of my high five salary years. Right. So he's like, and then, if you stop at 25 years, you get like 86% of your high five, whatever. So the end is good. But the point that he'd always make is it took me 30 years to accumulate this pension plan. And he said, Ryan, these are dying. It's like these defined benefit plans, they don't exist anymore. So you've got to start saving early. So you start, if you want to save money and you want to be comfortable in retirement, it took me 30 years to earn all this income. You better be putting a lot away early on. So it was kind of start saving early was probably the best advice. And I think that one was the personal finance. A lot of other advice I've had is investing finance, or investing advice, so to speak. But yeah, that was personal finance, like save money early. And the longer that you have that and you put it to work for you, the better off that you're going to be. And then I think it also gave me the mentality of a long horizon, where it's like, it's going to take you 30 years to generate this wealth that you need in retirement. You can't do it in 10, you can't do it in 5, but if you're patient and you do it for 30 years and consistently, then that's how you have success and comfort in the end. And it's not just a flash in the pan, chase a return in a couple of years and continue that. It was start early and have a long horizon. Probably the best advice.
Yeah, there's so much truth to that. And I think it's a very common misconception. Guys will, should I earn 8% or 10 or 12? Like, no, like the earliest you can, like markets are going to go up and down like that. That's inevitable. Like what you can control is, early in your career, early in your life, even hockey aside, right? Like regardless of your career path, like if you can set aside money early, like time is your friend, and just the way compounding works, so important. So I'm glad you brought that up. That's an excellent point.
I will say though, it gets scary, and it was important and hard to stick with it at certain times of the market and everything else. But you guys will probably know too, like when you're playing the NHL, you have a comfortable salary, things are coming in, and really you don't have a lot of worries whatsoever. But then I got done playing, and it's amazing. And you can see how players can fall into these financial traps because you have these big checks coming every couple of weeks. And there's some financial planning that you have to do because you don't get paid throughout the summer. So you've got to have enough on hand to get you through to when the paychecks start the following year. But the year I was done playing, it was eye opening to see like income stops, like how fast the account starts to go the opposite direction, right? So, it's a weird and a tough spot to be in, but I'm really thankful for that saving advice early on, because there was enough time there and enough of a nest egg to bleed out that time and figure out what I need to do post plan.
Yep. Yeah. No, and that whole concept of safe withdrawal rates too, like especially right when whether you're a hockey guy ending in your 30s, kind of having some kind of plan, or a typical retiree like your dad, right? Who doesn't have a pension, but rather has, 401k is the common vehicle today, and saving. And what we find, regardless of occupation, like mentally, it's when you're in the accumulation phase, right? You're getting paid. It's easy, right? You defer, but at some point that it flips from accumulation to preservation and distribution, right? And like the latter is much more difficult to figure out for most people. So excellent point.
And you see people that, like you said, are actual, 60, 65, 70 at retirement age. When that flip switch, they have a minute of panic. While us as hockey players at 30 or 35, that flip switch, and you're looking at, 60, 70 years, and you're going, well, that's not enough, like, what do I, so it's about, having a plan to bridge that gap, right, into your next venture. Cause, it has to be less than 10% of the amount of guys that actually play in the NHL that actually make enough that's it, right? That they can actually live off for the rest of their lives. The majority of us are going to have careers afterwards, but you definitely need a buffer, right? To kind of bridge that gap and get your feet under you in that next venture.
Yeah. To your point, the average salary in the NHL is like, I don't know, $2.5 million, but I think the median is somewhere around like $700,000. Now, don't get me wrong, that's a lot of money, but when you do the math, the average career is 3 years. 2.1 is not going to get you to the end. So you're absolutely right.
Yeah. No, it's not enough. That's for sure. So yeah, and it's unfortunate. I mean, just being on this side of the business, how many guys, they take it for granted while they're playing and they're in that accumulation phase. And obviously everybody just wants to be the best hockey player they can, right? They want to be focused on that. But not many guys want to take a little bit of time while they're playing to kind of look at those things, to actually plan. They just focus on hockey, and then all of a sudden, your career comes to an end. There's very few of us that our career ends on our terms, right? So it's usually pretty abrupt, and all of a sudden you're going, wow, I need to learn a lot, or I need to do this really quickly. Like I should have planned for this. And, that's a big part of, I think, all of these things that we're doing. I think, getting the podcast out there and stuff is just about trying to get guys to have, shorter things that they can take in, where they can learn a few of those lessons and maybe get their mind clicking and thinking, hey, while I'm playing, I can kind of start thinking about these things and start putting a plan in place, so that whenever that career does come to an end, hopefully it's at 40, it's 6 Stanley Cups on, but for most of us, that's not the case. Whenever it does come to an end, at least you're confident that you can kind of, stay through and make it into that next venture and kind of know what you're stepping into next.
And be able to chase. Like hockey gives you a gift. The NHL gives you a gift. It's the ability to chase and do what you want. And you want to be able to exercise that and be comfortable and say, I want to do this job because I'm passionate about it, not do this job because I have to, so to speak. Yep. Hockey gives you that gift, and I think you'd be naive not to recognize that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Ryan, we really appreciate you taking time out of your busy day. So just our last question, very, very broad and general, but just what would you say is the best advice you ever received, just life in general?
Boy, it's probably, and I would say that I'm still probably just figuring this out, but it's how much people matter. Like we'll chase finance, we'll chase work, we'll chase our own desires. But what I'm figuring out in this second chapter is how much everybody else matters. And the relationships that you make matter, right? It's respect the people, be good to the people, be ethical, accountable, all of these things to everybody else. And those are the foundations to good personal relationships. And, you can try to climb the mountain, man, but you need a Sherpa there with you to help you. So it's make sure that you're getting the things that you want done for you, Ryan, but make sure that you recognize and you are good to the people that are helping you get there. But I would say that that's probably the most important thing that I try to focus on now is making sure that everybody understands how appreciative I am of them for their help, and making sure that, because it takes work, like raising kids and trying to be busy. It takes work trying to stay in contact with people and to do all of those things. But for me, that's probably the most worthwhile work there is, versus sitting behind a computer or pounding out some chart that I need for the game coming up. It's make sure I invest my time into people.
Oh, that's beautiful, man. Let's end it on that. That's
It's a fantastic analogy with the Sherpa. I really like that.
Yeah, well, I love that. Oh, that was good.
Yeah.
That was so good.
It's funny to hear you say that you feel like you're still working on that, because I just know from playing with you, you were always a guy that was always good to all the people around you. And I'm sure that has had a lot to do with leading you down the path that you're in, being able to stay in the game. And is there anything that you're doing now, outside of that? I know obviously the three girls keep you busy. You're in hockey. You got charities. Anything else you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, so coaching, that's fun. So that keeps me busy too. I got all three of the girls playing hockey. I coach a little bit of soccer, know nothing about it. That's kind of fun.
That's fun. I do too.
So I've had to, personal finance, I've read some books too, and it's, Warren Buffett had a quote, and I think it was, "Don't cut your flowers and water your weeds." And be ready to go all in when a good opportunity presents itself. And I was training towards the end of my career with a guy, Ryan Engelbert. He had one single little gym in Oakdale, Minnesota. And I went in there with Thomas Vanek. We started working out. We liked the guy. They had some football guys in before. Adam Thielen, who plays for the Vikings, was one of them. And we got to know him. We loved him, trained with him. Then he started to have a big vision, like, "Hey, I'd like to open some more gyms. Would you guys like to partner?" And we started to invest in these gyms, and it's ETS, sport performance training gyms. And I love the culture that they've created. And it's been great, because now we have so many kids nowadays specialize in sports so early. And what we try to do with ETS and investor in a few locations in HQ there, but what we try to do is provide like sport performance training that will give you a good foundational piece. We see a lot of kids nowadays have overuse injuries from being a single sport athlete from 6 years old on, where, they have athletic movements, but all of a sudden the game gets faster at 16 years old and their knees go, or certain things, because they just don't have like an athletic foundation. So they have these movements that they have to make, and injuries occur. So really investing in the gym and the kids, and making sure that they're doing the right thing. So real passionate about ETS sport performance, and it's great. We love it. It's a good thing. And we're growing right now too, trying to provide it to as many kids as possible.
Oh, that's great. Well, we will put the link towards that when we finally do release these. You and Yogi both soccer coaches with no knowledge.
Yeah, Ryan. I've got a 7-year-old that, I didn't. I mean, I know the basics, right? You can't use your hands and things, but over the years, I've had to, expand my knowledge base in the game of soccer. Try to get these girls running the right way, and so it's what a blessing, though. I never realized how much joy it would bring me coaching my daughter in soccer. It is so fun.
What that teaches you is the power of the word yes. At some point, somebody asked you willing to coach soccer, and you had to say yes. The easy answer would have been, no, we'll leave that up to the experts. But you said yes, right? And
right.
There's a lot of joy because you said yes. The power of the word yes is pretty impressive.
Yeah. We enjoy around the office getting the updates on the squad. He's had some good seasons with these girls, so he's doing something right.
So how many years have you coached? I get tapped out at like 7, 8 years old, so I'm basically herding little cats running around. We're having fun.
Yeah,
but if you're getting into the serious stuff, I'm impressed.
It's not that. I mean, I started when my daughter turned 5. So 5, and so here in Charleston, right, they have a spring and a fall season. So it's So yeah, 2 seasons, 5, 2 at 6. So I don't know. She's coming in. So I've coached like 4 years or 4 seasons now. And it's nothing serious. Like this is just, we're talking rec leagues. We're not, traveling around the state or anything, but it's,
you kind of said that
I
too,
still
right?
don't know. Like, what's that?
Well, you kind of said the same thing. That you're getting towards the end of your, like, it's starting to get above your knowledge range.
Yeah, I'm either going to have to like invest more time in learning the game or move back into like an assistant coaching role because these girls need better than what I'm bringing to the table.
Yeah.
I just go down the Lionel Messi wormhole on YouTube and just say, "Hey, guys, do this." That's about as good as I get out there on the field, but it is a blast.
That's what YouTube's for. YouTube's fantastic. We got you there. Well, fellas, I think it's been awesome. Thanks for taking the time, Cars.
Really appreciate
when do you think we gonna get back that Medicus back out? I got some bets against you. I got to get that putter going.
Yeah, I think I talked about saving. I think I saved all those dollars that you had to slide into my pocket. So I'll give you a chance at them again.
So talk about it. Those are compound interest. Those are probably worth some money now. So yeah, I know.
Right.
I'm gonna go buy a Medicus myself and get practicing. We'll have to cross paths in the south somewhere so we can hit up one of those all night greens.
That sounds nice. Well, thanks for having me, guys. I had a blast. It's good to see you. Good to catch up at the end. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Ryan.
Well, thank you, buddy. Appreciate it.
Through this podcast, the information provided by the Hockey Wealth Group is for educational purposes only and does not constitute financial, tax, or legal advice. You should consult a financial professional familiar with the specific circumstances of your unique financial situation before making any financial decisions. Nothing in this broadcast constitutes a solicitation for the sale or purchase of any securities. Any mentioned rates of return are historical or hypothetical in nature and are not a guarantee of future returns. Johan Kroll, CFA, CFP, and Tyson Strachan, MBA, are investment advisor representatives of Oceanside Advisors DBA, the Hockey Wealth Group, an SEC-registered investment advisor.